Have you ever been to an industry event like the digital accountancy show that I spoke at recently and come away buzzing with ideas? You perhaps found some shiny new software that looked incredible. It promised to solve a big headache in your business. So you bought it, maybe even on the spot. You rolled it out with the team. Well, okay, you told them about it in a meeting and then nothing. A year later, you're quietly cancelling the subscription. No one's used it. And now you're wondering, was it just a waste of money? You're not alone. In this episode of De-Stress Your Business, we're going to explore why great tech still fails in firms like yours, even when it should be game-changing, and what you can do differently to make sure your next investment actually delivers. I'll be sharing some of the most common myths that cause leaders to get this wrong, and I'll take you through a 7-step tech adoption process that's designed to make sure that your team doesn't just have the tool, but actually uses it to solve real problems in your business. Welcome to De-Stress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at Airmanual. So let's talk about the tech magpie trap. It's that moment of excitement, usually after an event like the digital accountancy show or Accountex or whatever industry event you've attended where you've spotted something shiny, a tool, a platform, a bit of automation, a bit of AI, and you think this is it. This is going to change everything for our business. And hey, I get it. I've been there myself, both with technology, but also with gym subscriptions and a whole host of other stuff in my personal and work life. But to use an example, a client of mine once told me that they bought Hootsuite because they were struggling with marketing. And it made total sense in theory. Marketing was a pain for them. Hootsuite helps you manage your social media. Perfect. They spent about £1,000 a year on it for 2 years. And do you know how many social media posts they created with it? None. 0. Now, when they finally do hit post, that is going to be one very expensive tweet. But it's not just them. This kind of thing happens all the time. We get back to the office all excited about the latest tool that we've come across, and we expect our teams to just magically get it, to dive in, to explore and come back with results. But most of the time, that doesn't happen. And it's not because the tools are bad. In fact, many of them are great. And with AI involved now, some of them are incredible in terms of the impact they can have. But it's because we behave like tech magpies, collecting shiny things, hoping they'll fix deep problems without really understanding what it takes to implement them properly. So the question is, why does this happen? Why do smart, capable leaders like yourself buy powerful tools and then fail to get the value from them? Let's break it down. So the first thing that I want to dive into is perhaps why tech isn't being used, because I tend to hear a few very familiar excuses. And I say excuses because, well, they sound reasonable, but they're rarely the reason why tech adoption fails. So let's go through a few of the greatest hits when it comes to these excuses. The first, we've got too many tools already. Now, this one always makes me smile because in almost every case, the problem isn't too many tools. It's too many tools doing the same thing or tools that nobody's actually using. And funnily enough, some of the biggest tech fails I've seen happened when the team had one tool, like that Hootsuite example. It wasn't that they had loads of marketing platforms, they had just one. And it still didn't get used. So too many tools? No, that's not it. Second excuse, it's not user-friendly enough. It's another classic. The reality is nowadays, most modern tools are pretty user-friendly. If your team is struggling with them, it's usually not about the user interface. It's more likely that they don't understand why they should use it or how it fits into their workflow. I once had a client email our support team saying a link wasn't working within our site. And when we checked with them, what we found is that they had literally shared the word link, hyperlinked to the word link. It's not the tool's fault. What they've done there is a mistake. And actually, most tools have tried to be as user-friendly as possible to achieve these things. But the issue is how people are using it. Third excuse I often see, it's missing a feature. Now listen, if you're using a mainstream tool that's survived longer than a year, chances are it's got everything that you need, at least at the core level. And so the issue isn't whether it has the feature, it's whether your team is getting value from it. And that's a big difference. Fourth excuse is it's not integrated with our other tools. Now, integration often seen as the holy grail, but honestly, for most tools, integration is a nice to have, not a must have. If the core problem it solves is big enough and the tool is the right fit, it doesn't need to plug into every other system, particularly on day one. That's a bonus, not a barrier. And excuse number 5, our team is full of digital dinosaurs. Now, this one sort of winds me up a bit because the truth is it's usually not the older staff that struggle. I've seen so-called digital dinosaurs pick up new tools faster than their younger colleagues when they understand the why behind it and that they're properly supported. So it's not about age or even tech savviness. It's about whether you're creating the conditions where people can actually succeed. So if it's not the number of tools or the interface or your team's comfort with technology, what is it? What actually causes tech adoption to fail, even when the tool is great? Now, there's 4 biggest culprits that I see time and time again. The first is that the technology is not solving a burning issue. That's the big one. I.e., you find a tool that looks clever, cool, exciting, but your team doesn't see the point. They're thinking, this doesn't solve the problem that actually keeps me up at night. And as a result, they're not going to dedicate the time and energy to think about it. Because if they don't feel like it's a pain that's meant to be fixed, they're not going to use it. If I gave you the best pair of noise-cancelling headphones on the market, but you never struggle with noise, you'd probably never take them out of the box. Same with software. If the value isn't obvious and immediate, it doesn't matter how good it is. Second problem I often see is that one person, typically one business owner or one leader, buys into it, but no one else commits. Now, this happens a lot in firms with multiple partners or directors. One of you gets excited about a tool, maybe after attending an event, and brings it back like, everyone have found it, this is the future. But if the others don't buy in, it's game over. You will get inconsistency, resistance, and eventually questioning on the value and cancellation. Now, the tech wasn't the problem there. Alignment was. Getting everyone on board with this being the answer. The third problem I see is just assuming people will figure it out. Now, I love user-friendly tools as much as the next person, and both of my software businesses get incredible reviews for how user-friendly they are. That's very important. But that's about removing the friction because, and although I'd like to think that it makes a big difference, just because something is intuitive doesn't mean people will know what to do with it. We can't just say, here's the login, go nuts. You need to define what good looks like. You need to show people how and when to use it, because otherwise even the best tools won't make a difference. And I've seen this with my own software businesses where we've got a very user-friendly tool. We get rave reviews on that. And yet I've had clients who sign up and won't reach out, won't have a call with us, won't do any of the implementation, and no one in the team uses it. And it's really frustrating for us as a software provider because we want to help, we want to add value. But just because it's user-friendly doesn't mean that automatically people know when and why and how to use it. The other thing I've seen tools where the implementation has been better, the case is clear and so on, and yet the user interface is terrible. And yet somehow the team managed to make it work, even if it takes 12 extra clicks to what you'd expect and the menu's a mess and so on. They work it out eventually if the problem is big enough and they've had some kind of support and training and so on and are clear on what they're trying to achieve with it, they'll find a way. So don't just assume that people will work it out. The fourth biggest problem I see is trying to use new technology for old or non-existent processes. Now, this is a sneaky problem because you might think, well, I'm buying the software to make a process better. For example, to automate several steps in a clunky process. But if the process either doesn't exist or it's broken, all you're going to be doing is digitizing the mess. So there was one firm that I worked with who bought a really fancy procurement system and expected it to magically reduce costs and headcount when people start using it. But the team kept using it to do the old process. So the same steps, some of them now in the new tool, but the same inefficiencies as a result, just a prettier interface and perhaps more data collected as part of the process. Now, when we actually fixed the process, they went from needing 19 people handling procurement down to 3. And that's the process. That's the power of aligning process with the technology. So if we want the tech to work for us, we need to stop blaming the tools and instead start addressing these underlying issues like sorting out the process. Now, to do this, because that can be challenging, I've got a 7-step tech adoption process that you can follow or your team can follow to make sure that you actually select and implement technology that's really going to solve your problems and gets used by your team and ultimately delivers the value that you want. So I'm going to take you through that 7-step process now, so that you can actually get those real measurable results. So, but also I'll share a link, which is airmanual.link /DAS25, where you will find the ability to fill in some details and get sent a step-by-step detailed playbook that includes this checklist, this process, with many more detailed steps and prompts and questions and so on. It's interactive as well, so that you and your team can actually use it in your business. But also there's a whole playbook around it to help you apply this in your business and tailor it to suit your needs and so on. So do check that out. It's an incredible load of value there that will make this so much easier for you. So in fact, you might even want to pause this, go get that, and then follow along with the interactive checklist that's at the very back of the playbook. So the first step is and there's 7 steps as I'll cover it in this podcast. The first step is to identify the problem and desired outcome. So we start with why. What's the burning issue in your firm that's causing pain, wasting time, or creating risk? Maybe it's your team spending hours chasing client documents or missing critical information between meetings or having poor visibility on deadlines. Shine a spotlight on that one issue and get crystal clear on the outcome that you want. Because until you do that, any technology is just guesswork. And by the way, if you're not sure how to pinpoint your biggest problems, then there's some prompts and questions for this in the playbook at airmanual.link /DAS25. Step 2, define the ideal process. So before you throw software at the problem, ask, how should this work? What would a smooth, efficient, repeatable process look like? Don't digitize a broken process. Fix it first. That way, the technology can amplify your improvements, not your inefficiencies. Step 3, find the tech to support it. So now, and only now, do you start looking for a tool. You're not looking for the most feature-rich or exciting option. You're looking for the one that best supports your process to achieve your ideal outcome. Now, when you know what problem you're solving and how you want to solve it, the right technology becomes much more obvious. And I'll give you a little advanced tip of this, which is actually in the interactive checklist as well. If you're struggling with the ideal process, go speak to some vendors on the software side, ask them what they think the ideal process should be, and then go back a step and work out what that looks like for your organization before then picking software to support it. Because they should know what good looks like in terms of the process. And that's also a really useful question to start comparing some of the tools as well when you start to get to grips with how do they approach the problem. Step 4, get cross-business buy-in. If you've got more than one partner, director, team leader, you need alignment. Otherwise, the tool that you're excited about will just end up on the shelf of shame like all the others. So bring people into that decision early. Share the problem, the process, and your proposed solution. Get their input, get their commitment. You don't need everyone to be an evangelist, but you do need them on board to what you're trying to do. Step 5, run a pilot. Don't roll out to the entire firm at once. Start small. Pick a team or process where the pain is biggest and the benefit will be most visible. Get it working there first. Don't pick the easiest area, pick where the impact will be highest. You'll learn loads, you'll iron out the kinks, you'll also get huge benefit, and then you can scale with more confidence. Step 6 is to provide structured onboarding and training. Even the most intuitive tools need some guidance. Your team needs to know when to use it, how to use it, why it matters. So give them clear checklists, step-by-step guides, and real examples. Show them what good looks like. Because if you leave it to chance, don't be surprised when adoption flops. Step 7, adjust plans based on results. This is where you need to review what's working, what's not. Are you solving the problem you set out to fix? Is the outcome that you set at the beginning being achieved? If not, don't jump to blaming the tool. Look at the usage, the processes, the expectations you've made, the guidance you've given. Iterate on that. Because success doesn't come from a perfect plan. It comes from thoughtful adjustment and iteration. So there you go. That's 7 steps, super practical. And when you follow them, you stop being a tech magpie. And instead, when you follow them, you stop being a tech magpie that's chasing shiny tools and instead start being a tech eagle, soaring above the options and picking the ones that really deliver. Now, I've mentioned before, to make this really, really easy, I've pulled all of this into a playbook, complete with the slides that I used when I was presenting about this topic at the Digital Accountancy Show in April 2025, and an interactive checklist that goes through all of these steps in loads more detail than I've covered on this podcast, but is interactive so that you or your team can actually follow it and put in your notes as you go through to support collaboration across your team and support that buy-in as well. And you can get all of that for free at airmanual.link /DAS, that's DAS 25, that's 25. So airmanual.link /DAS 25. So to wrap up, if you've ever felt the sting of spending hundreds or even thousands on a tool that never gets used, you're not alone. It's not because you made a bad call on the tech, it's because no one ever showed you how to adopt tech properly. But now you've got a process. 7 steps that take you from shiny object syndrome to actually solving meaningful problems in your business. You don't need to be a tech wizard. You just need a bit of clarity, structure, and a little bit of focus and intention. And I've made it super easy for you to get started. So use the playbook, use the checklist so that you can help your firm to adopt new tools successfully without the stress. Oh, and before you go, one last thing. I'm going to be speaking at Accountex on the 14th of May, right at the end of day 1 on the Orbit stage at the London Excel Centre. I'll be diving into a completely different topic, but one that I think is even more important if you want your business to thrive. That session's called How to Get the Best Out of Your People, even if they're terrible. It's going to be fun, brutally honest, and packed with some really practical tips on turning underperformance into progress without becoming a micromanaging monster. So if you're planning to be at Accountex, come along, say hi. Let's tackle some of those people-related stress points head on. Otherwise, until next time, thanks for listening. Go be a tech eagle and have fun.